When they start deciphering a pattern and that becomes of interest, then they push the analysis a little bit further.
Where we get the transition towards a government.
Well, we do know that Solly Zaidel was a star conservative candidate. We know he got a patronage job from that minister just days after his defeat.
CETA is a law that guarantees the right for corporations to make money, even if that means selling off our...
And with that, we're back again. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Kendra Cooper.
It is so fun to be here because we are like your stress release from your crappy job and your crappy world dealing with that crappy government, because we talk about the truth. And, of course, we say the things that they can't say in major media.
Yeah.
We are Radio Free Canada.
But we do know they are listening.
Yeah, we are. And for everyone from Homeland Security, remember I said the word bomb parts. Let's run this.
With an estimated 90% of Canadian telecom traffic routed through the U.S., surfing sites like Facebook and Google could get you swept up in the American surveillance web. But it turns out Canada's electronic surveillance agency is playing Big Brother too, by collecting metadata.
The metadata basically is the phone number or the IP address. When they start deciphering a pattern and that becomes of interest, then they push the analysis a little bit further.
Documents obtained by the Globe and Mail show back in 2011, Defense Minister Peter MacKay signed a directive restarting the government's so-called metadata surveillance program. First launched by the Liberals in 2005, it had been on hiatus due to concerns it could lead to Canadians being spied on without a warrant.
Are the Conservatives monitoring the phone and email records of Canadians, yes or no?
MacKay pointed out it's still illegal to spy on the communications of citizens.
This program is very much directed activities outside the country, foreign threats, in fact. And, Mr. Speaker, there is rigorous oversight. There is legislation in place.
Still, experts say between the lines is a loophole.
A U.S. citizen is a foreigner for us, and a Canadian citizen is a foreigner for the Americans. So we can respectively collect information, then swipe information with one another.
It's hard to see how you can provide any reasonable assurance that what you're doing is only tracking individuals who are outside the country. In fact, we know that the program was canceled several years ago because they couldn't provide that kind of assurance, and it's hard to understand what exactly changed between then and now.
A spokesman for Canada's Privacy Commissioner told Global News so little specific information is known about the metadata program, she wants to find out more. Shirley Angle, Global News, Ottawa.
So what they're trying to say is that it's illegal and they would never do that?
Well, Peter Pinocchio MacKay kind of has a track record of not being completely truthful with the public.
He just sidesteps it.
Yeah, I know. When he's not taking $1 million helicopter rides or buying jet planes that we don't need.
Or losing $3.2 billion.
Would you still quit talking about that $3.2 billion it's missing? They're never going to look for it, and they're not accountable, okay? It's just as simple as that. Where is the right wing holding them accountable?
They're just accounting errors.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Coming from an ex-oil industry accountant, Stephen Harper. Okay, things that make you go, definitely right here as we take on the Canadian government and say the word bomb parts just to make sure that Homeland Security keeps us at the top of their list. What do you got for me?
Well, our dear leader was in Belfast at the G8, and he had a few things to say to Mr. Putin, Vlad, who should probably eat his liver.
Look, I think that dialogue will be interesting. I think it's important to have that kind of dialogue, but I don't think we should fool ourselves. This is G7 plus one. Okay, let's be blunt. That's what this is, G7 plus one. We in the West have a very different perspective on this situation. Mr. Putin and his government are supporting the thugs of the Assad regime for their own reasons that I do not think are justifiable, and Mr. Putin knows my view on that. But we will not, unless there's a big shift of position on his part, we're not going to get a common position with him at the G8. I think what's important is that we continue to work with our allies in the G7 and in NATO to see how we can move the situation in a positive direction where we get the transition towards a government that is genuinely representative, broadly based, democratic, not a threat to the world, and certainly not embracing of terrorist or extremist elements.
So why is he demanding they have a government that's not, that has all those things that we don't have?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems a little bit ironic.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying accountable, democratic. We're not a
I
democracy.
know. And what stands out is we in the West. It's like the Occident versus the Orient. Like just another
I know. They're keeping that duality thing, that paradigm alive.
Yeah, we're civilized and they are not. Let's
and
kind of thing.
And the perspective that we have, which is our head up our rectum.
Yeah.
There's no oxygen getting to his brain cells. It's obvious from this foreign policy. Thank goodness it wasn't John Barrett up there, though. Because, when he gets up there, it's like, don't eat your lunch, right? It's like, don't eat your lunch and then watch John Barrett, because he puts us on the wrong side of history all the time.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. So, right now we're taking a look at the way that they're dealing with this Putin situation, and really, we need him to shut up. Okay, if Harper could shut up just a bit more.
Well, he's got a few problems of his own.
Yes. And
well, I mean, he's quiet on the
time.
Yeah.
Skeletons coming out of the closet time.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, everybody grin while we watch more.
A man who has been a principled, steadfast, and outstanding friend of the state of Israel. Let's welcome the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper.
No question. In the last election, Stephen Harper had high hopes for his star candidate in Montreal.
I want to give my thanks to Solly Zaidel for welcoming us here today.
Harper didn't campaign much in Montreal, but he made an exception in the riding of Mount Royal. Zaidel lost the election, but he was promptly made Montreal advisor to the federal heritage minister, James Moore.
Merci tout le monde.
Harper continued to promote Zaidel, here at an event in Montreal last year, then at a conservative fundraiser at a pub that night. Then Zaidel's job ended.
Well, we do know that Solly Zaidel was a star conservative candidate. We know he got a patronage job from that minister just days after his defeat.
The opposition parties didn't seem to care the allegations relate to Zaidel's time in municipal politics. They made it the focus of today's question period.
We know that Zaidel was arrested today on a series of corruption charges. What we don't know is what was Zaidel doing on the Minister of Heritage's payroll? Tell us.
This was a highly paid senior advisor to the Heritage Minister. Why did the background check on this person? Did it not reveal any wrongdoing?
Mr. Zaidel was praised by the Prime Minister, and he was hired by the Heritage Minister. And then suddenly, without explanation, he left his lucrative ministerial job. Why?
We sit in the background and you got to laugh, bang your head against the wall sometimes. Okay, because this is a rising star of the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where does he go?
He goes to the private sector. Then he
shows his true colors.
And then he's arrested on corruption charges.
Now, remember, one of Harper's own confidants, one of his own advisors, married a hooker and then got caught with his hand in the... and then caught with his hand in the cookie jar because they gave the hooker's business a huge whack of cash.
And, of course, there's Mayor Rob Ford. There's Mayor Applebaum of Montreal.
Yes.
And then there's a Senate scandal. I mean, have they had a good week?
I don't know.
The whole time they've been in office?
But that's a good question. We need somebody to look it up and find out if they've done anything good at all. I mean, have they? I know they axed 22 women's programs. They totally destroyed the environment. They're sucking up to the banks as fast as they can. Tell me anything. Is there anything good come out of this government?
Not that I can recall. They did hike back the GST, didn't they? Or did they?
Did they do Senate reform?
No.
That was something. Senate reform. Anybody?
No.
Anybody?
No.
Accountability? Anybody?
Haven't seen that.
Anybody?
No.
Crickets.
How about CETA?
But they're helping out the corporations.
Let's run this.
The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. It's a complex name, but its effects will be simple, decisive, and ugly. When our government signs CETA this fall, the way we do business and the way we live will change forever, and it won't be good.
CETA is another one of Harper's corporate rights pacts, essentially. He calls it a free trade agreement, they call it an economic partnership agreement, but really it's about taking government out of our lives, taking options out of our lives and handing those options over to multinational companies.
CETA is a law that guarantees the right for corporations to make money, even if that means selling off our essentials to life, like water resources and food safety. CETA puts our lives in the hands of the lowest bidder, often a distant foreign company whose sole purpose is to turn a profit. It's an agreement that's mired in secrecy. Our government doesn't want us knowing what our lives will look like once CETA is a reality. CETA is another way for Harper to hastily sneak in binding changes before we can react. But there are other ways to be a profitable nation, with a healthy economy and a population not scrambling to make ends meet.
Our cities can create jobs by spending locally. They can protect the environment by spending locally and keeping services public. The Harper government doesn't like that. He's against those kinds of policies, and CETA's a way to constrain cities and constrain provinces in what they can do.
And of course, because free trade worked out so well for Canada.
And Mexico and the States.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, and these corporations are so powerful and their effects control our lives.
Yes.
But democracy, as we know it, cannot touch them.
Yes.
Right?
So
And that's the problem.
democracy does not exist.
Yeah.
When we were doing the Occupy rally at the Okanagan College, Justin Trudeau was there, and I said, there will be no democracy until we vote on bank policy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And everybody responded. I was really surprised at how well informed people were at how the fascism was going and what the root causes were. They say that we own this country. We don't own anything. They own it all.
Yeah.
As long as the banks issue the public money at debt, we are slaves.
Indentured servitude is one of those things. Fractional reserve lending, of course, we talk about that extensively. The way banks make money up out of nowhere, and now they're bankrupting the world. But of course, Brazil, Cyprus, Ireland, Greece, a few other countries have gotten to know what's the scam is up.
But didn't our dear leaders speak in front of the British Parliament and say austerity is working?
More austerity. Make sure you do check our facts, too. Remember, we do not make commercials that say trust us, because we want you to use your intellect just like you're doing right now. Choose alternative media and check out what we got to say. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Kendra Cooper.
And yes, indeed, we're going to keep the girls in the tree house as we do a couple more segments here. What do we got coming up, brother?
Community activism. People stepping up and doing stuff.
Because that's the part that counts. That's what we're here for. Your stress relief, knowing there are people working the problem for real. Municipal sustainability is coming up from Radio Free. We've also got a major program called Freeloaders coming out, and a documentary about 10 years after the war in Iraq, which is going to be called
Warriors and Thieves.
Produced by Robert Nisbet, directed by Darren Howard, with Kendra Cooper here just because she makes us look good. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back.
1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left of the gold standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid.